Well, good evening, everyone. I am John O'Loughlin, and welcome to my channel. It's called McDuff_2020. And here at McDuff_2020, we are rebuilding from the McDuff Kennedy's Man to Smash the CIA site, which was terminated in the YouTube purge about 2 months ago now. And we have been successfully rebuilding. I think we're very close to 3,000 subscribers now, and well on our way to rebuilding back to 11 or 12,000 where we were. Because I think everybody that follows this channel knows that there is real guts in our history to understand the inside of our history that has never been exposed before. And it's only through looking at it from different facets, from different angles, and that you can triangulate it to the truth and say, now I see what's happening. And one of the great things that I've learned is that there are a number of great authors who perhaps I disagree with politically. Doug Valentine comes to mind. I don't think Doug and I are on the same side in this election. Nevertheless, we are friends. We have a very good correspondence, and we rejoice in the insights that we've been able to come across together. And I'm just so grateful for people like Doug Valentine. And that leads me to our author tonight, who is Andy Kreig. Andrew Kreig is the essence of Washington, D.C. journalism. One of the great mainstays of the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., where I've visited with him a number of times and enjoyed his company. Had lunch with him back last Christmas time, and then we went to the Red Mass together at St. Matthew's Cathedral in Washington, D.C., where we saw none other than the then Attorney General, William Barr, and a number of very, very prominent officials in Washington. The Supreme Court, a lot of them were there. I don't think Justice Ginsburg was there, but a number of them were there. And it's a big deal for the powers that be in Washington, not only the Catholic ones, but everybody. It's, the Red Mass. And consider the importance of that in view of our strong majority of Catholics on the Supreme Court now. So part of my work this year has been examining the faith of my youth, Catholicism, and noticing the tremendous change in the Church. And it really dates to Vatican II in 1960s with Pope John the 23rd, and all of the changes that are now we now find we have a pope that's actually a Jesuit for the first time in history. The church has changed along with the times, and I'm not making a judgment except for to say that it got involved deeply in the financial chicanery, let's just say theft, money laundering, the dirty money that got washed through the Vatican Bank is a great stain upon the church. And I don't think the church is ready to go back to the Latin Mass or to a purely religious function. It's an actor on the world stage in a big way. And so when we look at the church now, we look at it with Operation Gladio, Paul Williams' book that we read here on the channel, educating us to the fact that, as much as we would love to treat the Pope as a great moral leader, a father figure, and as they advertise, a bridge to the Almighty, his feet have clay. I'm sorry. And it's all involved in the same rat lines and the facilitation of the escape of war criminals. But most importantly, for our purposes, the financial impact of laundering money that has been taken, like literally the gold in the teeth of the Jews of the Holocaust. These things are dark, dark blemishes upon the church, and I'm sorry to say them. But we have to face that along with everything else we have to face. And, if you're looking for where the money is, you can't not look anymore at the Vatican and the Vatican Bank, because it's just been too well documented that they participated in money laundering on a huge scale. So, well, I didn't mean to get off on that tangent, though. I wanted to stick to the presidents tonight, because this is Andrew Kreig's topic in his book. He calls it presidential puppetry, and the subtitle is Obama, Romney, and Their Masters. Pardon me. So the theme tonight is this, that if you take an honest look at the facts and report them as facts, then there's very little difference between the people on the left and the people on the right generally. I think the difference is mainly produced in terms of a Madison Avenue propaganda style of campaign ad wars, and the negative advertising that has been in use so long, to the point at this point where they did not have to say anything good about Joe Biden in order for Joe Biden to ostensibly win the election. All they had to do was say Orange Man bad over and over and over again, a la Joseph Goebbels, and repeat that big lie. And that was all they needed to do. They didn't need to go forward and say, here's why Biden is a good choice. Of course, we all know that there isn't any reason for them to say such a crazy idea, because he's not a good choice. He's a terrible choice. But anyway, I thought I'd start tonight where Andy has a number of wonderful quotes from from Roger Stone, from Naomi Wolf, Clifford Arnebeck, Ray McGovern. These are heavy hitters, and excellent recommendations all the way through. His first book was about the demise of the independent Hartford Courant that got bought out and kind of, changed obviously for the worse in terms of journalism is concerned. And Andy, of course, was the author of that book. Spiked is the name of it. How Chain Management Corrupted America's Oldest Newspaper. Here's a quote from the famous Helen Thomas. I came here in 1943, and I don't think I've ever seen our country so bereft of ideas and ideals. I don't see anything on the horizon that can pull us out. I hope I'm wrong. Republicans have one goal: to get Obama. But when they see the country falling apart, that's all they can do? As for Obama, I think he's weak. He has no courage. We need a stand-up guy to do what's right for the country, unquote. And that's Helen Thomas, December 7th, 2012, at the National Press Club, speaking at a Sarah McClendon group dinner. She died in 2013, so that is one of her last public appearances. Well, her judgment, it seems to be proving true that we are really on the ropes right now, and we need a stand-up guy. And I don't know why it is that it's so hard for us to just accept that President Trump is the stand-up guy that we need. But everyone has their own history of how they've viewed Donald Trump over the years, and he's received probably the most vicious shellacking of any sitting president that I can imagine through these impeachment and everything. I mean, I won't go through the litany, but that's where we're at now. It's not important that Joe Biden have any talent or skills or anything to show for his 40-some years in public life. That's not important. Just that he doesn't have orange hair and doesn't have the press all over him all the time. Well, I'm going to spend a bit of time now just reading the preface written by Andy Kreig. This book published in 2013, written in 2012, so that gives you the time frame. This is as President Obama embarked on his second term. This book is for those who want to understand the news, not just watch it. Conventional political punditry does not tell us what we need to know. Historic changes threaten economic and legal justice and our future. As President Obama embarked on his second term and Republicans regrouped to fight again in the fall of 2013, most Americans faced the same problem as before the 2012 elections. The majority are experiencing unnecessary austerity via a political process that works for the elite. Okay? Now this is Andy's assessment after the first 4 years of Obama, that unnecessary austerity. Well, are we not going through that now? I mean, I think it's unnecessary, but it's austere, and people are stretched very thin. Even as Americans, I mean, around the world it must be even, far, far worse. But we as Americans are stretched very thin right now. Our budgets are stretched. Our ability to do what needs to be done, the pressures on us are enormous. And so things have not gotten any better, but we can take advantage of this bit of hindsight now to say, this is not new. This has been going on. And you don't have to be a Republican or a Trump supporter to see it, because Andy is not. Hey, Kathy Sue, I like that. It's so nice to see you, and thanks for your yeoman service as a moderator, or what we call a wrench. The process appears broken only to those who fail to understand that decision makers are intentionally gutting our basic democratic procedures and rights, such as voting, checks and balances, due process, the press, privacy, and many other safeguards we take for granted. The core problem is that top officials posing as decision makers are front men and women. They speak but do not inform. They listen but do not hear. Their interests are not the public interests. And that's it right there. These people that take public office, these are front men and women. They speak, but they don't explain. They don't say anything. They just tell us. That's like our Governor Hogan, he just tells us stuff here in Maryland. So, and they listen, but they don't hear. Goes in one ear out the other, because they're already thinking about their next fundraiser and how much money they can get out of so and so. The core problem. The following pages provide a toolkit for those who want to address this problem. The book connects the dots for the public about facts that are well known in specialized elite circles. The 2012 elections provide a rare opportunity to illustrate vital matters neglected during the elections, which supposedly determine government policy. Instead, winners revert to the agendas of their powerful core supporters, whom I describe as puppeteers. The public has scant opportunity to influence this process without understanding it better. The book's goal is to help readers perceive a new political reality. Our elected leaders are far less powerful than they used to be, or than they seem to be. Their funders and other masters have changed the rules so that the public loses. As for the stakes in this new game, some receive easy and often corrupt wealth and low taxes. Others get lack of opportunity or loss of job, savings, civil rights, health, or home. The pages ahead are like a mystery. Like other whodunits, everything seemed normal on the surface at the beginning for me as an observer. Then I found clues of crime, which arose in the instance with increasing frequency after 9/11. My perspective is from Washington, D.C., where I worked for more than 2 decades, primarily as an advocate for high-tech businesses. My job as president of the Wireless Communications Association was to foster the regulatory, financial, and other conditions that would enable a new wireless internet industry. As such, a vital part of my job was monitoring public affairs and initiating opportunities. These included such post-9/11 government priorities as broadband initiatives for public safety, disaster remediation, homeland security, and warfare. At one convention in 2005, we hosted important U.S. government and Iraqi leaders to describe in public for the first time how they had successfully deployed a nationwide public safety wireless network. While going about such work, I noticed what seemed like puzzling omissions in news coverage of U.S. public affairs. The omissions arose especially in the kind of court cases I had examined as a newspaper reporter and as an attorney early in my career. These irregularities proved to be disturbing upon further examination. 3 examples illustrate my concerns. One was the strangely low-profile federal probe of the post-9/11 anthrax attacks on journalists and U.S. senators. These attacks had caused several fatalities and transformed the federal business climate by requiring vastly greater security, especially on letters to government officials. Yet the public received only sporadic information about the investigation and the suspects. The first person of interest, Stephen Hatfill, was exonerated in 2008. The second, Bruce Ivins, was found dead, reputedly by suicide. Another case with obvious irregularities was the aggressive prosecution on prostitution charges of Deborah Jean Palfrey, the D.C. madam. She lived in California and was just days away from retiring to Germany before her prosecution. She faced massive federal charges and pretrial seizure of her assets. Also strange was the Bush federal prosecution on corruption charges of former Alabama Governor Don Siegelman, his state's leading Democrat. The Siegelman case fit a nationwide pattern that became apparent with the exposure of the Bush United States Attorney Purge scandal in 2007. Federal prosecutors across the country launched politically motivated cases to keep their jobs as, quote, loyal Bushies, unquote. The Bush administration fired 9 of its other appointees in apparently unprecedented fashion, a process exposed in House Judiciary Committee hearings. In 2007, I met a Republican opposition researcher, Dana Jill Simpson, just as she was becoming nationally famous for exposing the scandals. She helped me open my eyes in the years ahead to the intrigues of global importance. In researching these cases, I discovered sinister official conduct related to national security. These factors prevented the suspects from defending themselves fairly. Wow, where have we heard that before? Mike Flynn, Roger Stone. These factors prevented the suspects from defending themselves fairly and the public from learning the facts. The research revealed plans to corrupt the democratic process, including presidential elections. This book reports my findings. What's it to you? Why should you care? A friendly editor asked me in 2009, one day early in my research. His was a logical question, especially from a thoughtful old hand who had covered vast numbers of speeches and charlatans during his 3 decades as a prominent journalist in the nation's capital. Journalists and lawyers don't seem to be doing their jobs. If what I'm learning is true, we all need to know. To be credible, the full story takes nearly that many pages. I mean, he had mentioned 650 words, and he said it's going to take that many pages. Without a footnoted examination of the Cold War, for example, few readers are going to believe the Obama family had a national intelligence background. Similarly, few can appreciate without relevant history the importance of the Mormon religion to Mitt Romney. Each of these factors is vital to also understand whether Obama faced a loyalty threat from the nation's military intelligence complex in the manner of film dramas such as 7 Days in May. The inside story of the resignation of CIA Director David Preface is far different than the simple sex scandal peddled to the public. So is the Benghazi massacre and spin. This book documents plots for massive election fraud in 2012. Second-term Obama appointments that affect jobs, pensions, health care, and the economy have been made without full disclosure. Questions also arise about a CIA relationship with the family of the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing suspects. Separately, massive federal surveillance of Americans created new mysteries in June 2013. Should contractor Edward Snowden, then age 29, have alerted the public by violating his CIA and NSA oaths? Participate with me in the investigative process. Use your own power of imagination. Suppose you were minding your own business and living your normal life, and then you began seeing clues about sinister matters that few others seem to notice. Well, I think I've had that experience. What would you do? Whom would you try to meet? What would you say? I face these questions. The journey unfolds in these pages. I connect the dots from significant events drawn from an entire century. The patterns seemed especially important after the 2012 election season. The public had every reason to believe the candidates were known after 2 years of campaign. This book shows what was withheld. Candidates come and go, puppet masters remain. When I started this research, I had no idea it would lead me to assemble, bit by bit, a story that would suggest extreme treachery. At first, I thought I was assembling a gigantic jigsaw puzzle that would include missing information. With ever greater excitement, I began to see patterns emerge. At this point, however, I realized the puzzle analogy is too simple. Assembling all the pieces provides an opportunity to visualize a scene, not truth. Someone of unknown motives created every scene we think we see in these political puzzles. They're created for us by master illusionists like Karl Rove, who once told a biographer that his generation of strategists could create a new reality. Thus, completing the jigsaw puzzle is never the end of the puzzle. We must update our understanding of who created each scene and why. Some may regard the disclosures ahead as so depressing that no one can do anything. Please do not feel that way. I do not believe we are powerless, neither do my main sources. We are pointing out potholes in the road ahead, thereby easing the necessary journey to protect our heritage and future. The rest of President Obama's second term could be far different from his first, especially if the public knew more about his strengths and vulnerabilities, and guided him and his opponents accordingly. One of my themes is knowledge is your power, drawn from the biblical proverb, hope without understanding does not lead to happiness. So it takes effort to penetrate their secrets. Fortunately, we have new tools to connect the dots from previous research. NSA contractor Edward Snowden's revelations alerted the general public to the huge threat posed by Big Brother, government collection and potential retrieval of all our electronic communications. NSA and other government agencies consistently understated the scope of their spying and its potential use against Americans. Relatively low-ranking private contractors such as Snowden clearly have great powers, as do their superiors. Courageous whistleblowers within NSA and elsewhere have long warned against these abuses. Beyond the NSA revelations, 2013 produced important new details about the members and methods of elite, secret networking bodies. The June 2013 Bilderberg Group annual meeting convened 130 attendees at a luxury resort outside of London for secret annual policy discussions. Participants included, as usual, government leaders and the major banking, weapons, mining, and media titans, such as British Prime Minister David Cameron, David Rockefeller, Washington Post Chairman Donald Graham, and the supposedly disgraced former CIA Director David Petraeus. The latter's ascendancy after the CIA disaster in Benghazi the previous fall illustrated how the inner circle builds loyalty. Petraeus attended as the newly appointed chairman of a subsidiary of KKR, the prominent Wall Street company run by longtime Bilderberg leader Henry Kravis, that's Kravis. Additionally, Petraeus was hired for $150,000 to teach a 3-hour course at the City University of New York about energy policy, fracking, and tar sands pipelines. The hacker Guccifer stole and distributed membership lists of those active in other powerful groups. One listed 1,500 members of the Council of Foreign Relations, who focus on national intelligence. These CFR members included a representative from almost every major media company. I know some as decent people and not part of any conspiracy, but the system of elite societies innovated in London more than a century ago relies on self-interest and self-censorship, not commands. And it works. Otherwise, this book's revelations would have been reported elsewhere long ago. The cryptome.org site displays a list of recent cabin mates of Mandalay, which is the most elite cabin in the super secret, all-male annual Bohemian Grove retreat in California's Redwood Forest. The 37 attendees included former Secretaries of State Henry Kissinger and Colin Powell, and former Treasury Secretaries Nick Brady and George Shultz. Other cabinet members were retired chairmen of Chevron, defense contractors Rockwell and Bechtel, consumer titans Sprint and General Mills, and top bankers from Rothschild Capital, Wells Fargo, and USB. Conflicts arise when those who seek access to the inner circles of power must decide whether their loyalty is to those circles or to the general public. In 2012, the right-wing transparency group Judicial Watch exposed email that embarrassed a New York Times national security reporter. He had secretly curried favor with the CIA by providing an advance copy of a colleague's column about CIA help for a pre-election movie showcasing the 2011 Osama bin Laden raid. Puppetry cuts through the usual niceties and back-scratching relationships. The public faces danger and deserves the facts. Readers are likely to benefit most by putting aside partisan loyalties to evaluate the evidence like an experienced detective who tries to shred preconceptions. To borrow a different image from the Matrix, we see more clearly with the red pill, how to become free. Part 1, How Our Imperial Presidency Imperils Us All, introduces the main 2012 candidates in ways that the national mainstream media rarely disclosed. President Obama is revealed as a centrist product of Wall Street, the CIA, and affiliated interests in the non-profit sector. His prevalent image as a community organizer and law professor is a partial truth, useful for campaigning, but not for governing. The right-wing attacks on him as a supposed radical is part of the show that energizes fundraisers and political operatives on all sides. The top operatives of the dynastic powers know better, for the most part. They saw Obama's true function as providing the illusion of hope, choice, and reform for a public hungry for change after the Bush-Cheney years. Then Republican opponents Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan are introduced as having their own secrets. Most damning has been their focus on anti-government rhetoric to mask how they exploit government for the benefit of their patrons and cronies. More generally, this section's histories of the Cold War and of the Obama and Bush families illustrate the roots of our era's government deceptions. All recent presidents are revealed as having had relationships with the CIA or FBI before their political careers. This does not mean the agencies and patrons foreordained their success, only that the candidates had been vetted as cooperative and worthy of support. Part 2, Romney, Henchmen, Enablers, and Fellow Puppets, exposes abuses by Karl Rove, NSA and CIA Director Michael Hayden, and General David Petraeus, among others. Specifics include efforts to corrupt vote counting. Efforts to corrupt vote counting, does that ring a bell? Yeah. And I love the idea of just look at this not from a partisan point of view, but from the point of view of a detective. That's what George Webb does, you know. He sits and sifts through this stuff and comes to his amazing conclusions, not based on his preconceived notions, but based upon the evidence. And that's what we try to do when we try cases in court. As lawyers, we want the evidence to dictate the result. And that's where we are just completely getting bamboozled over and over and over again by these puppet masters that run, the puppets that run for office. Well, his first chapter, Romney and Ryan, Apprentice Oligarchs, really goes through the Republican side of the 2012 election. And while it's fascinating, I'm going to skip it for tonight. I think if you want to learn the dirt on Mitt Romney, though, read this book, okay? And his connection with Howard Hughes through the man that George and I were talking about last night, Mayhew, Robert Mayhew, this kind of cutout spook guy that somehow got to handle Howard Hughes' money. It's an amazing story. I saw Professor Hamamoto had contacted me recently to talk about the LDS, the Church of Latter-day Saints, and how influential they are behind the scenes. So the potential relevance to Bain Capital and Romney of the eccentric billionaire Howard Hughes is worth a mention here. Hughes was one of the most fascinating figures of his era before his death in 1976. He was, among other achievements, a major war contractor with top-secret CIA business. Romney's Bain Capital colleagues early on included Robert Gay, a Mormon. Gay would become managing director of Bain from 1989 to 2004 and a Mormon general authority. This title is one of the church's highest-ranking offices, with roots extending back to the 1830s in a largely secret decision-making process launched by Joseph Smith. In recent years, after moving on from Bain, Gay has been managing director of Huntsman Gay Global Capital, a billion-dollar financial firm. Bill Gay led what became known in business circles as the Mormon Mafia that ran the Hughes empire during the tycoon's last years. The obsessive and drug-deranged Hughes lived in seclusion on the 9th floor of the Desert Inn, the famous Las Vegas casino. President Nixon's appointment of George Romney to the cabinet as Secretary of Housing and Urban Development helped raise the profile of the church within Washington. So did the ascendancy within the intelligence community of LDS member Brent Scowcroft, National Security Advisor to President Ford and the first President Bush. Scowcroft had been a protege of the Rockefeller family and one of its leading Washington representatives, Henry Kissinger. The CIA and FBI began heavily recruiting LDS members during this period because of their clean-cut image, work ethic, and language skills acquired during missionary work. The church's famous genealogy database is a unique trove of historical information on the nation's families. Also, the National Security Agency's $2 billion data center at Bluffdale, Utah, scheduled for completion in October 2013, is part of the Big Brother surveillance controversy that erupted mid-year. James Bamford, the leading historian of the NSA, set the stage in early 2012. Quote, "Today, Bluffdale is the home to one of the nation's largest sects of polygamists, the Apostolic United Brethren, with over 9,000 members. But new pioneers have quietly begun moving into the area, secretive outsiders who say little and keep to themselves. Like the pious polygamists, they are focused on deciphering cryptic messages that only they have the power to understand. Rather than Bibles, prophets, and worshippers, this temple will be filled with servers, computer intelligence experts, and armed guards. And instead of listening for words flowing down from heaven, these newcomers will be secretly capturing, storing, and analyzing vast quantities of words and images hurtling through the world's telecommunications networks. In the little town of Bluffdale, Big Love and Big Brother have become uneasy neighbors." Readers of conventional news reports during the campaign missed not simply the story of Hughes, the gay family, Mormons, and common involvement in the gambling industry. Almost always missing was the context of why the gaming sector threatens to corrupt public officials. Gambling poses unique dangers. It is a volatile, high-volume cash business that is heavily regulated and has a history of mob control. As a result, the industry has a long history of elaborate money laundering and tax avoidance schemes. 6 decades ago, beneficiaries of money laundering services included major Mexican narcotics dealers, as well as the Office of Strategic Services and the CIA, according to the experienced reporters Sally Denton and Roger Morris. The motives for government involvement are too varied to list. For current purposes, however, the spirit can be summed up in the goodwill gesture made famous in Casablanca. Your winnings, sir. In sum, the casino industry has a long history that did not end with Bugsy Siegel or Howard Hughes, no matter how family-friendly they make the tourist shows. The standard story is that Romney, a brilliant Harvard MBA with great instincts, and his colleagues all became rich because their talents identified spectacular successes among their approximately 100 deals during Romney's years leading Bain Capital. The pro-Romney tilt is that his successors, including as an early investor in Staples, the office supply company, show that he was a job creator. The fairer view is that the company's purpose was wealth creation for its owners, a goal that sometimes led Bain Capital to build companies and sometimes to gut them, including via complex financial transactions leading to bankruptcy, plant closures, and job losses. At other times, creating wealth meant investing in companies providing controversial services such as offshoring jobs and disposing of medical waste that included aborted fetuses. An article on the fetal medical waste is important because it shows that Romney was signing documents and running a Bain-affiliated company well after February 1999, when he, in his 2012 campaign, claimed he left the firm. Well, I could go on and on about Romney, and the next little section about Paul Ryan, I will skip that too. The next one is about the then President, Barack Obama, and it's captioned "The President's Hidden History and Why It Matters." And I'll read some of that in just a second. Well, I'm having to cherry pick here some of the best paragraphs for you tonight, as I'm running out of time and I'm only on chapter 2. At the National Archives with Wayne Madston in 2009, I punched in the name of Colonel J.C. King. I saw declassified correspondence regarding his post as the longtime CIA leader of covert intelligence for the Western Hemisphere. The documents included that King had been involved in sensitive matters at the highest levels of intrigue and diplomacy, such as his work with CIA Director Allen Dulles to determine U.S. options following Fidel Castro's rise to power in Cuba. My later research turned up a few references to King in published work. That's understandable given King's role as a leader of covert operations. Colonel King was not even his real name. According to his sparse and largely unsourced Wikipedia entry, it states that Joseph Caldwell King was the chief of the Western Hemisphere Division of the CIA in the 1950s and 1960s, and at times used the CIA code name of Colonel J.C. King. A West Point graduate, he had been a vice president of a major pharmaceutical company early in his career, and then worked closely with the Rockefeller family and its interests before his government career. After his official retirement from the CIA, he became CEO of a CIA front company called the Amazon Natural Drug Company. All of this tended to confirm my mother's recent contemporary recollections, revealed here for the first time, and I'm sorry I hadn't read that, but that was preceding the part I read. While I was researching Colonel King at the archives, Wayne Madsen, that is, was at the computer next to mine undertaking research on the Obama family that proved even more startling to me. Wayne looked up Business International Corporation, BIC, a New York-based research company that was Barack Obama's first employer after his 1983 graduation with a bachelor's degree from Columbia University. The CIA archives revealed that a New York Times article published in 1977, quoting the son of the owner of BIC as stating the organization was a CIA front company. The headline was, CIA established many links to journalists at home and abroad. The article by John Crutzen and Joseph Treaster drew on 1970s public concern about CIA excesses and documented extensive ties between journalists and the agency. Later in the book, we shall explore the implications of this article. Whatever the facts, the most striking aspect is how few in the media or anyone else ever dare to ask questions publicly about Obama's former employer, and other biographical information suggesting national intelligence ties to him and other U.S. political leaders. The reason undoubtedly relates to the extraordinary deference the major news organizations provide to the CIA. The 1977 New York Times story, for example, was a follow-up to a breakthrough 25,000-word article by Carl Bernstein for the Rolling Stone. Bernstein and his editors entitled their opus, The CIA and the Media, How America's Most Powerful News Media Worked Hand in Glove with the CIA and Why the Church Committee Covered It Up, unquote. Undoubtedly, the Times saw the Bernstein article and such underlying relationships as the CIA's secret media liaison Operation Mockingbird program as a challenge to the major media's tradition of deference to the agency. Until this book, I've not reported what I saw at the archives and my later research on the topic. It was Wayne's scoop. He published it in February 2009 in the Wayne Madsen Report, under the headline, Barack Obama's Postgraduate CIA Employment. I knew he hoped to write a book about it, which he did in 2012 under the title, The Manufacturing of a President. For 1 year, Obama worked as a researcher in BIC's Financial Services Division, where he wrote for 2 BIC publications, Financing Foreign Operations and Business International Money Report, a weekly newsletter. An informed source has told Washington WMR that Obama's tuition debt at Columbia was paid off by BIC. In addition, WMR has learned, that's Wayne Madsen's report, WMR has learned a decade after Obama lived in Indonesia with his mother and his adoptive father, Lolo Soetoro, the 20-year-old Obama, who was known as Barry Soetoro, traveled to Pakistan in 1981 and was hosted by the family of Muhammad Sumro, a Pakistani Sindhi who became acting president of Pakistan after the resignation of General Pervez Musharraf on August 18, 2008. WMR was told that Obama's Soetoro trip to Pakistan, ostensibly to go, quote, partridge hunting with the Somros, related to unknown CIA business. Does this really suggest that the future president had a suspicious relationship with the CIA or those involved in front activities? There is reason to be skeptical, as I suggested to Wayne. First, just because the company had served as a front in the 1950s does not mean that it was still involved 2 decades later, or that the young Obama might know anything about it. Most important for me at the time, I was hot on the trail of reporting then fresh abuses from the Bush administration's political purge of U.S. attorneys in 2006. More important, I have analyzed how they relate to his government's decision-making. The president's true history clarifies his decision-making on jobs, the economy, national security, war, health, justice, and the environment. The story that follows provides new understanding of Obama's 2012 re-election victory and his likely decision-making in his second term. And then he goes on and on into his mother's history. His third chapter is called Hidden Evidence in Plain Sight, citing an article in the New York Times by Janie Scott, wrote a biography called A Singular Woman, The Untold Story of Barack Obama's Mother. Primarily as a single mom, Anne reared the future president and died from cancer in 1995. Scott's book culminated in a 2010 interview with the president in which he shared his recollections. She obtained 1 hour of the president's time for her unique project, undertaken with her strong mainstream media credentials. She told those of us attending her book signing that felt fortunate to have received so much time from the president. I felt fortunate to hear her lecture. She's the best-known biographical research expert on the president's mother. Exploring the many unknown chapters of Dunham's life, the book's jacket says, Janie Scott traveled to Indonesia and Hawaii and across the continental United States. Her publisher summarized the book this way. Scott combed through archived personal papers, photographs, and letters. She interviewed nearly 200 of Dunham's colleagues, friends, and family members, including her children. She has woven that reporting into a powerful portrait of a woman whose grown children stand as striking testament to their mother's brave, unorthodox life. Her research and reviews seemed impressive, and I bought 2 signed copies, including one for Wayne Madsen. During the question period, I asked about a photo of Barack Obama Sr. that Wayne was displaying on his website. The photo above, and it's a picture of it here in the book, but it's really too small for you to see, appears to show Ann Dunham's father, Stanley Dunham, welcoming her future husband, Barack Obama Sr., to Honolulu International Airport from Kenya. In the photo, Dunham is the white man standing immediately to the right of a new student among a crowd of other island well-wishers. I asked Scott, why would President Obama's grandfather attend this kind of welcome reception without his daughter? Was it in 1959 or 1960? That was odd, I thought, reflecting on how Scott had described exhaustive research to obtain letters, draft research papers, and other documents from Ann Dunham's friends, family, and co-workers. Next, I bought a copy of New Yorker editor David Remnick's much-praised Obama biography, The Bridge, The Life and Rise of Barack Obama. Biographers have few details about the Dunham-Obama romance, in part because of the brevity of their relationship and early death of the lovers. The gist of it is that Dunham, who began her freshman year at the University of Hawaii at age 17 in 1960, was soon smitten by the brilliant, self-confident, and worldly Barack Obama Sr. He was 26 and one of the few black students at the entire university. That account begs a basic question about the photo. Why would Ann's father, ostensibly a furniture salesman, get involved in a welcome party for Obama, reportedly in 1959? The answer is that furniture selling was a cover for Stanley Dunham's secret responsibilities. Based largely on confidential sources so far, Madsden makes the case that Obama, his parents, and his maternal grandparents had significant career ties to U.S. intelligence as part of an overall U.S. effort to combat communism in such former European colonies as Kenya and Indonesia. Well, wow, I'd love to just keep reading, but I encourage you to do it. This book is one of the most documented books you're going to get. I mean, what is there? At least 100 and some pages of footnotes and biography, and I guarantee you, if Andy Kreig says it's true, it is true. You can take that to the bank. The backgrounds of the Bushes, of the Clintons, of the and a lot of good stuff in here about James Comey, and of course a person who both Andy and George Webb have grown highly suspicious of his motives, General David Petraeus. So please take a hard look at this book, Presidential Puppetry by Andrew Kreig. I'm hoping to have Andy back on the show early in the next year, and of course we look forward to that and wish him and everyone else a very, very happy holiday season. Thank you so much for being with me tonight for a review here on my Wednesday night review. What we're doing is we're going through the book train on screamingospreys.com, and each of the books that I have on my book train, I read significant portions of on my channel, and in order to keep them current in everybody's mind and to give you a 1-hour version, I'm doing these every Wednesday night. So tonight, Presidential Puppetry by Andrew Kreig. Thanks for being with me. I'll see you tomorrow. By the way, tomorrow is Christmas Eve, and I think I'm planning to take the whole day off. I don't know. Anyway, maybe I won't see you tomorrow. In that case, Merry Christmas, everyone, and thanks very much. And thanks, Tyrone, for the super chat.